I think there are three big concerns about AI. One is that, our computer overlords are going to take over the world, as Ken Jennings so cleverly stated in the final round of Jeopardy when the human Jeopardy players lost to the AI. That is just not going to happen. The other concerns are that all the jobs will be taken away. That is not going to happen, and I'm happy to talk about why that's not going to happen, but let me just get to the third concern so that I have them all out on the table. The third concern is we won't be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's fake or synthetic in terms of any digital output. And that, of the three, is the one that is not going to go away. That is going to become ever more a problem. Let me circle back to jobs, if I could, first, because many people, again, without long-run historical perspective, make the argument that if computers can do everything that humans can do, then what jobs will be left for humans? I think it's the wrong way to view it. Think about where we were 200 or perhaps 250 years ago, where essentially everyone was either a part-time or a full-time farmer. You could have made the argument that when all the things that people do can be done, meaning mostly agriculture, can be done better by machine, what will happen to all the farmers? And yet here we are with 3% unemployment rate. Somehow the fact that only 1 in 100 people covers agriculture, directly involved in agriculture, hasn't prevented new jobs from being created. And so it's not the fact that computers will become better and better at doing all the things humans currently do, but there's a failure of the imagination to think that there won't be new jobs created that allow humans to do something in ways that are desired. And why is that? It's not about a race against a machine. It's something far more fundamental, and that is disposable income. As long as people have disposable income, they will want to find new ways of spending it. And that's where job creation really fundamentally for the long term comes from. Yes, will there be disruption and dislocation in the space? Yes. But as long as there is disposable income, there will be new job creation. I think it's a mischaracterization of the situation. What the initial competition is between those humans that know how to effectively use AI and those that don't. And so the simple first step to take is to start using AI personally to leverage your employability. Okay. Next, if you're talking about AGI in 2026, you're really not talking about extensions of large language model in any way, shape, or form. Okay. I think a much more sensible voice in that space is Jan LeCun, who points out through many, many well-grounded arguments why AGI is just not something around the corner. Having said that, I want to go back on even more fundamental ground, that just because something can be used by a human to outthink a human that is not using it does not lead to saying that an AGI, even should it emerge, okay, is going to be superior to a human and an AGI in combination. I just not going to happen. And again, we think, oh, but this time is different. This isn't the agricultural revolution. This isn't the industrial revolution. This is the take over the humans revolution. But it's not the way job creation flows. As long as there's disposable income and someone that's willing to try something different, okay, there will be job creation. I worked in this general space many years ago, and you can see the limitations of these systems. They don't learn rapidly. They don't learn in one-shot ways the way humans learn. They are still at a stage that is easily thwarted. They don't generalize the way we think about generalizing. They don't adapt to new tasks in the way that we adapt to new tasks. But again, I'm really trying to say something more fundamental. And I know it's frustrating when you talk to someone trained as a physicist who's really only concerned about long-term outcomes to say, but what about this that's just around the corner? Long-term things equilibrate. There will always be a role for humans that want to leverage the new technology versus just the technology on its own. Our reliance, our dependence on computers to solve all sorts of problems, has gone so far from a pencil and paper world that we're already in that situation, and we frankly don't feel all that threatened. There's a long-running joke in the AI space about this concern that when computers can do this task, then that'll be really different. And the joke is that as soon as computers are able to do that task, then people say, well, that's not really AI. It's this next moved goalpost that really constitutes AI. And, it's not because people in the past were unintelligent. You can read these quotes from Turing, for example, surely a fairly intelligent person. And he felt that what computers would be able to do just around the corner was going to so change the nature of what it meant to be human that, doomsday was on the doorstep in the late 40s and early 50s. And you can go back every decade through some of the most leading and intelligent AI researchers, so-called, and have them predicting that just around the corner, it's all going to change. Well, here we are with 1 trillion times more compute power, and yet we're still, it hasn't changed. And so at some point you have to say, maybe there's something fundamental people are missing about human nature and their interaction with machines. And I think that comes a lot closer to predicting what this next go-around is going to be like. Deepfake started out as a bit of a joke, just kind of fun. You see the Pope, the Holy Father in a very puffy white parka, sure, and everyone gets a giggle out of that. It becomes much more of a concern. I know I'm just recapitulating part of what you said, but I want to tee up this so I can answer the question in the right framework. It becomes much more of a concern, not only when politicians are deepfaked, but when journalists reporting on politicians are deepfaked. And there's a concern that there'll be such a flood of deepfake that we'll all just kind of throw up our hands and say, you can't trust anything. And while there are attempts to use AI to detect AI, I think that's sort of missing the point, because legitimate players are increasingly going to use synthetic creation to create new digital content. We thought photoshopping was going to destroy the world, and yet here we are. And everyone is airbrushing the wrinkles out. I think the real issue is, do I know who created the content? Who is willing to take responsibility for the content? Because that person can develop a track record, and we can decide whether we think that content authorized by that person is trustworthy or not. And I do think that that is the larger issue. And that's why I'm proud to be backing SureMark Digital, which is really about being able to run to ground the issue of who did and did not create a particular piece of digital content. It's definitely a cryptographic mechanism that Stuart Haber and I have developed that's being moved into commercial production by SureMark Digital. It certainly involves asymmetric key pairs that allow one to sign work, but the real issues have to do with how you know that the person that holds the key pair is the authentic person, and secondly, how you know that the content remains valid and legitimate as it moves across the internet. And we think we have a fairly robust solution to both of those issues. Put a consumer in the position to be able to be confident that the key pair assigned to a particular individual is actually that individual. And it will also allow a consumer to freely validate the content against that source. Again, don't think of it as a watermark, which can easily be fake, but rather thinking about it as an algorithm that can be run by the consumer in the background that validates the proof of authorization.
Okay.
And, visually what you're going to see is up in the toolbar, basically a yellow light that says there's content that claims to be authorized by this person. Do you want me to check it? And then if it checks it, it either produces a red light or a green light. I am super bullish on AI to be able to greatly enhance our individual capabilities for creativity. I'm super bullish about all the good that can come from AI. I have very few reservations about problems, such concerns as the so-called singularity event. I have very few concerns about that. These are, when Apple first brought out the Macintosh, and I'm, making my age evident, we bought in the very first year one of the first Macintosh computers, my wife and I, and they had a program for software development in the educational setting, and the slogan for it was "Tools for the Mind." I think in another 5 years, we'll look back on what large language models are doing today, and we'll say, it just turned out these were just additional tools for the mind.